wanted to start with you first. There's so many incredible performances across the board. And before heading into filming, you had conversations with each of your actors on Zoom. How did those discussions influence slash impact these characters? And as a writer director, how did you create the space for them to take ownership of their characters and go to these really vulnerable spaces?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, we did Zoom. Well, that's a great question. I mean, there's things that you never have time to know. In the audition, you're kind of only like auditioning the talent in a weird way,
Mm,
and you're really fortunate when there's this interpersonal connection that I think the four of us and a couple others of us, a couple others in the principal cast had, which is in such an important part of those intangibles that create vulnerability. Yeah, we just had this. I know it's almost a cliche, but this family-like vibe that made it feel safe to challenge. And they're not only like talented, but really insightful. So it was like pushing back on me in ways um, that, yeah, I'm a big believer in like it's either going to be pain now or pain later, and I'd rather be sort of in the moment and have to like tweak a scene and maybe sort of eat humble pie for a minute versus the long-term pain of boy, if we didn't fix that, this thing would have been inferior forever. So that's a big question, but I would say we were able to do Zooms before, and it's an indie film, so there's like never enough time. We were chatting about this a moment ago. Part of it's just like the fire under our feet of we got to go go go. So
mhm.
sort of it brings out like the your A game, but having people that are interpersonally really not only clued in to the characters, I think the three of them knew the characters even better than I did as the writer, but being willing to speak up and say, hey, if this is true of my character, which I'm tracking with, then we're missing a stepping stone in this scene. And those being able to trust that they ultimately knew the characters better than I did, proved to be true. And I think that's where you get a lot of this really, really full-fleshed performances from.
Definitely. And then Patrick, Simon is a character that has so many contrasting qualities, and you did such a fantastic job bringing out all of those different nuances. For you as an actor, how did you find your way into this character?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I'm going to tip of the hat to the writer. That's what excited me about the project to begin with. The writing is not like a lot of things that you normally see. Is the truth. And I remember when we sat down for the table read, how excited I was because it was, it's that first day of school, and the energy of hearing, Deanna and Kaylee speak it, and the dialogue finally happening as opposed to in my head, which
Mm,
that's that. Um, Really got exciting, and they were such great collaborators to have. And in terms, and that is answering your question in a way because um, a lot of my work is the reacting to who's on the other side of the
yeah.
dialogue, without a doubt. And these ladies gave such wonderful. I mean, they would throw such wonderful balls at me, both verbally and with their eyes. It just hits you and it disjoints you. So the best it's what's exciting about acting, right? I think I know what the scene's about, and I think it's probably all about me and my face and these words that I'm saying. And then you get into it, and it turns out it's not that. They have some ideas about what's going on too. So does Ian. And through that wonderful process, I think we really surfed and got a lot of great elements out of it. So I think what you're responding to is
Yeah.
it's a cliche again. It's a collaborative effort, and my work was thankfully done 60% by the people on the other side of the dialogue. So I thank them for that.
That collaboration led to these incredible performances that we see on screen. And Kaylee and Deanna, there's such a groundedness that you each brought to your performances. And these were two roles that Ian had trouble casting when many of them were playing to like these different tropes. For each of you, what was your character exploration process like, finding the core of who these women are? And what was it about your respective character that resonated with you?
Go D.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll be very honest with you. I got the script and I think had maybe Ian, was it like 24 hours before the first audition? I was in New Hampshire. Uh and I remember thinking every time I go out of town back home to be with my family, I get like this audition. And I was like, ah, my mom's like, okay, go to Target, go get the ring light. We'll throw up, it was very improvised. And maybe a day or two later, got the call back and then was in Portland 20 days later. I mean, it happened really, really quickly. And the prep for me and my process really is trying to find the tissue, like the connection of this human being and their circumstances, the given circumstances, you know, so just sort of basically understanding uh interpersonal relationship with a significant other, and then having
Mhm.
your own relationship with your own career and field, and then add on just cancer and death and competition. And you know, I think having watched the film, I realized that Claire and I are similar in the way that Claire doesn't really want to be in the center of attention. You know, she is dug so deep in her expertise in her field. Everything, the accolades and the attention and the success came because she drilled down so hard into her field. Where
Mm.
for Simon's character, and I would argue too for Sarah, you know, they're out there really seeking that fame and that success, and it's different, you know. And so for me, I think just personally, I'm slightly introverted and kind of quiet, and I think that did lend itself to the ultimate the performance, you know, because there was a sense of regality to Claire that I think Ian and I had discussed. And when you have a director who has a vision and is able to communicate, so there was a lot of dialogue that went into it as well.
Yeah, I feel like I want to just make it very clear that you can't have collaboration if the person in power, especially the man in power, doesn't allow it to happen. And we can all try, but if Ian wasn't willing, wasn't flexible, wasn't truly welcoming pushback with no hidden oh, you hurt my feelings and I'll make you feel that later, it wouldn't have happened. And so like it's true, and it's rare, unfortunately, I think. But for my experience in the film, I was just so fiercely like defensive of Sarah. I did not want her to become a like a punching bag of Christian stereotype. I think
Mhm.
that pretending that all Christians, all women, all young women, all authors, anything are a monolith is a really big trap. And I wanted to really represent her and her flaws. But then as Kaylee coming to set and being like being like across from Patrick Fabian of Better Call Saul, which I'm just now watching. Thank God that I didn't watch it before. Patrick, I like it's really bad. Like I did a movie with this guy, and now every time I see him like more and more removed, I am like worse. I'm like more fangirly and weird. So like I will say that my process was ignoring the fame of my co-star for as long as possible. And then just like watching the way Dee works on camera, just like with her like crazy understated
Mhm.
effortlessness was really instructive as well.
And you know, Ian, art has the ability to heal. That final monologue by Simon's character is so beautifully written and expressing grief and the impact of a loss. And it's something that you went back and edited when you picked up this script again. Can you talk a little bit about revisiting that scene and its evolution?
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote this thing. My dad was Washington State's first transplant when I was 10. So dude was sick my whole life. So I knew in like 2017 to 19, I knew I was writing about grief. Didn't know that he and then my two other family members, my only sibling and my mom, they all died in 3 subsequent years. And I was working on a short going through what we all collectively are grieving, which is like the modern era, you know, COVID and just the upside down topsy turvy that started for everybody. Also kind of was on steroids for my family. I remember reading it through and being like, I don't really know what to change until I got to the end, which was Simon's monologue. And what I had experienced in, say, like the 4 years or so since I had written the script, and this very, for me, sort of innocent thing of I'm writing about grief, but not having lived it to that extent. And that was the one sentiment, you know, he kind of gets at this idea of what it's like once people, you've lost them, but time has gone on. And you know, in my, I guess, literally younger stage, I always thought, oh, you'll have the home movies in your head, that's what grieving is. And what it really was more for me is like, there is a feeling that comes with everybody, and it's like as unique as everyone's personality. It's a I was me and you were you, and together we had this connection that was based on our. And I had never heard that articulated. I had heard my parents say like, "Love them while they're here because they'll be gone someday," but I had never heard that sentiment. So I felt like I wanted a little bit selfishly for me, but also hopefully mostly because I really thought it capped the story of, Simon gets plenty of real estate to make a fool of himself. And I'm a believer, audiences can decide what the film is doing for them at the end. I think both Simon and Sarah are starting to heal because they're starting to listen outside of themselves. And, not that the guy's earned it, but it felt right that he is able to share something that he's not ashamed of, say, 2 weeks later. So I felt like that was, the right kind of character arc. And as much as you're hearing from everyone, we really wanted to ground it in credibility. And I felt like that was something that was not put on, that I could sort of share from an experience. And I'd never heard it or read it before quite like that. So I was like, yeah, Simon should say this.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that scene's going to hit so many people at the core. And Patrick, you've worked on projects of all sizes. What is it about independent filmmaking that excites you as a creative and a storyteller?
Well, I'll go back to, the script. We got connected and I got a chance to read the script. I've been reading scripts for 30 years. Some are better than others. And you get used to a certain type of thing. I made my bones in television, hour-long drama or sitcoms, and they have a certain rhythm, and those good scripts feel a certain way. And I thought Ian was trying to say something. And, our first conversations, I even said to him, I said, I'm not even sure what it is you're saying, but I know you're saying something, and I'd like to help illuminate that, whatever that is, to be of service to that. Because I love, in this day and age, somebody who's coming from the heart. And so that attracts me. And in terms of projects, big or small, whatever, what's the play we're doing? It all has, problems, warts and this and that. But in the end, I like the collaboration of that's what I got involved in it when I played like the Nina in the Santa Maria when I was in second grade. Hey, we were all 3 ships of Columbus. It's never really left. I like the idea of like, let's put on a show. And he said, let's put on a show. And I'd never been to Portland, and I never had the chance to work with Indiana or Kailey. And that's always exciting and frightening all at the same time. Do they know what they're doing? Do I know what I'm doing? What are we doing here? And I think everybody has that collective sort of nervousness, right? And that's why I go back to that table read. We all know what table reads are, and we sit down, and that's a moment where all of a sudden everybody drops anchor, and you go like, oh yeah, oh, we're swimming in the same sea. I can do this with these guys. Let's find out what's in the other end. I don't know, because you do this, and you and this is just an old man speaking, you do this for a number of years, but you do it for a number of years, and you think it looks great on paper and everything's shiny, and you have a great time, and it's a piece of shit at the end. And you're like, what happened? You just don't know. And you don't know going into something like this. But if you're anchored with somebody who has passion and has ideas, well, I can anchor myself to that. I'm willing to play with that regardless of what we get on the other side. And more than likely, because I'm myopic and I look like this, I don't know what the whole idea is, and you rarely do. And then when we finally see it, you go, oh, I didn't know. I missed that, or now I get this. And it's just nice to be a part of it. I'm sort of a big thought, sorry.